Hello and welcome into the SorareData NBA show. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, at Andrew M. Laird on Twitter. Joined today by Alex Hooper, Tilt City FC on Sorare, at Lex Hooper on Twitter. Keith Jamison on his way. He'll be here at some point. The good thing about Keith not being here is that we can talk about him behind his back and he won't have any idea what we're saying until we fill him in later. So Alex, thank you for coming back. I feel like we were talking about this before. This show was kind of built for you and I to disagree with Keith. Keith is not here yet. So I'm going to play the role of Keith and tell you why you're wrong. And then when Keith gets here, I will then switch and agree with you.
That's fine. I can play that game. I respect the position, playing both sides against each other. It's great.
I try to be fair to everyone here. And so that's what we'll do. No, but the topic that we're trying to cover today is one that basically it's a classic Sorare in any sport conversation where we're like, we've been talking about this for days and we're like, man, maybe we should just talk about this and other people listen. And so here we are. And a lot of this, the issues that come up with seller play, which is basically you bought a player because you thought that they would go up in value or they'd be really helpful for your lineups. And then deadline comes and the price like skyrockets because everyone is like, oh, wait, that's the guy. And you're like, man, do I double my money or do I try to win with this card that I bought? And Keith is kind of the poster boy for this because I mean, he tweeted earlier this week of him buying like 6, concert cards.
Yeah.
From Disney, I believe, while feeding his new baby a bottle. And now it's like, oh, do I sell these? Obviously, he's not going to play 6 of them, but he's like, when do I sell them? Do I keep one to play? And the trickiest thing about these types of cards, and it basically comes like somebody's ruled out injured. This time it was Desmond Bain. And then it was like, okay, who fills that spot? And the reason those cards become valuable is not just because like, oh, this guy's better, but it's like usually a really low L10 and people like to buy those cards specifically to play in lineups. And then you're presented with this like, crap, do I want to play this in my lineup or do I sell? So which side do you fall on in this situation?
So it's tough for me because I'm not perpetually online like Keith is. And he's doing.
We say that as a positive,
right? Totally. Yeah, I mean, if he can do it, he can do it, and it benefits him greatly, especially in the ETH department. I don't have a lot of instances where it applies to me, at least in basketball yet, and that's where there's the most opportunity because these things happen, and all of a sudden you see those spikes. Those spikes don't really happen in other sports except for maybe like goalkeepers when the first choice keeper gets hurt. So for me, I would have to run my lineups and see like where I think I can realistically finish because that the line on the card, there's Gonchar. Those are all Keith, by the way. The line between there's one.
He's literally first. 1, 2. 3. I can actually just go here. This is the easier spot. Apologies for everyone who's listening, but I'm basically going through the auctions and offers page to see. Let's see. Oh, he only bought 3 limiteds.
And then Pudini got a couple.
Brett and Pudini got 3 more. And I believe he bought a few rares as well. Keith,
yes.
Gator Guy 231.
Yeah. So, I guess the point that I was eventually going to get to is the margins for how much it increases your win percentage is, I would say, small enough to where I think you just sell if you can still put out a decent lineup. Like sell as soon as you start to notice it maybe drop just a tiny bit or like the demand isn't as there. Because so Keith bought 3 of those, probably what it looks like you could sell them at all right, in his case, over 3x.
Yeah, let me I'll move to the to dollars at least. Let me see. Keith got in around between 550 and 6 50-ish. And we're at, last sale was 11, which is actually pretty low.
Yeah.
Oh, Bologna snagged it. So maybe it was a misprint, but 1648.
Yeah. So,
and here he is to join
us. There he is. So, yeah,
Mr. Gator guy himself.
Uh-oh.
We're talking about your Conchar buys.
We're looking at your purchases.
Oh.
Literally your purchases, yeah. But anyway, sorry, Alex, you were saying.
So it's just about like, do you think you're going to make up? So essentially that's like a 0.011 ETH difference in like per player. So if Keith got the 3 there, if he sells all 3 for 0.011, you're looking at like a 0.033 card. I won a Zach Levine T2, I believe, and sold it for pretty much exactly that. So if you want to play the game and aim for like that as your floor, then maybe don't sell. But if it helps you get like Giannis, Luka, KD, and then you have like a Conchar and then some other mid-tier guy like a Jalen Suggs who's someone else on his team, it's just all about lineup construction, whether or not you think you can actually compete. Because if you turn the Conchar into a lineup that gets you a high T1, then it's a no-brainer. But how likely is that to happen?
Hey, so I think that's actually the best point of all of this that everybody has to consider, that like if you buy this Conchar card, for most people, I'm gonna assume, I have no data to back this up, so I'm just gonna say this. I would assume most people who make this move don't have the super elite cards that you can best take advantage of that card in a lineup. Like you said, if you already have Doncic and Giannis and whoever, Morant, and now you're putting Conchar in there, that makes sense. That can help you get to the T1. If you're putting it in with my Villanova guys, it's probably not going to get you there, even in Contender. And so I think you do have to kind of weigh, like, that's the question you should ask. Like, how competitive is my lineup with Conchar? And if it's not in a tier 1 or high tier 2, you're probably better off flipping it. And what we see in this chart here, like it's already coming way back down. I mean, not way back down, but back down, that, we're kind of in this. I mean, we peaked at $24 here, which felt a bit high, but there were a bunch in the 18 range, and we're kind of at, what is the floor now? 17. Where are we? About that. So
and it kind of depends on who the player is too, because a guy like Conchar he's a 3-point poacher. Yeah, and he didn't even hit his L10 last night, and they had one game this week. So it very much depends on. Maybe he did 23.
Yeah, he did. I was gonna say I saw that in chat too, and I'm like, he's, I think for next week a 19, and he's 17 this week, and hit like 23, which honestly was kind of like on the lower end of his expectation, just for how injured the Grizzlies already are. Because it's just the Grizzlies. This is what happens to them.
They looked like garbage last night down the stretch too. They looked awful.
I mean, Desmond Bane's really good. Like,
yes.
Desmond Bane was going to be an all-star the way that this started out.
Well, and Jaren Jackson looked extremely rusty. Still had 5 blocks because he's Jaren Jackson, but
right.
Yeah, but it's understandable though that he would be rusty.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, anytime you take an all-star type of player out of a rotation, there's the acclimation time. Like, I don't think Ja wants to have to score 40. Like, I know he can, but I don't think that that's actually how Ja's built. He kind of wants to facilitate a little bit too.
That's a good point. I might try to sell him.
Well, no, I mean, I mentioned in the chat too that, like, so I think I'm going to take us a little off topic, but whatever. That's what I'm here for, guys, is to take us off topic from time to time. But like, I do always think it's really interesting. Like, obviously I jumped on Conchar and stuff right away. I did the same with like, what was last week's? Killian Hayes was last week.
Yep.
Right. And I do think there's all of these, okay, X players out, so Y is going to get the immediate like start for him. Like Duran, we saw last night for when Isaiah Stewart news came out. But I do think the next level of this game is yes, Conchar is the direct replacement. Yes, Jalen Duran's direct replacement. Killian Hayes' direct replacement. But where are the actual usage spikes, right? Like, where is, all right, Desmond Bane's out. That's 15 to 20 shots. John Conchar ain't taking 15 to 20 shots. Like, that's not what he's here for. So, I mentioned on our FP Discord, like, don't sleep on Ja here. He hasn't seen any sort of price bump, but Bane being out puts a ton of load on Ja Morant. So, sometimes I think that we need to think that next tier too, to really up our play. If we've decided to play, up our lineups, go, oh, well, crap, Ja Morant's by himself right now. Like, Steven Adams ain't taking usage. John Conchar is more happy in the corner. Dylan Brooks wants to do it, but Dylan Brooks doesn't have the ability all the time to show up. He'll spike. So I do think that that's a really interesting thing to pay attention to too.
Where was the Larry Nance call? Come on, guys.
Larry Nance just shows up. I mean, that is just like the most typical Larry Nance thing too. But now, here's a really interesting with Larry Nance. I did not watch the game, so I'm pure speculation. Okay. But Adams got 3 fouls in 3 minutes, which is what caused the Brandon Clark spike. I'm assuming Steven Adams goes out and an athletic guy like Brandon Clark comes in. All of a sudden, Valanciunas is a lot less of a play for the Pelicans too. They're like, oh, okay, you're going to go small and athletic, or smaller athletic center. We can't have our pounder that can't keep up with him. So then they go more athletic and they play Nance, so you can match up well against Clark. So I'm assuming something like that happened.
That sounds pretty much exactly what happened.
Nice call.
Yeah. Look at, we need you on the sidelines.
Seriously.
Yeah, that was the thing, is Nance got that time, and he's like a high point per minute guy because he's a big block guy and rebound guy, and also, dude, Red Sea. The paint was the Red Sea in the last 4 minutes. It was like basically what happened was the Grizzlies at the end of the game came down the floor and Dylan Brooks would ISO and Ja was standing in the corner, and then the Pelicans pulled it out of the net, went to the other side of the floor, and just like nobody guarded Nance. He cut to the basket, McCollum shoveled it off. But like that's how he racks up those points, that in the blocks.
So to get back to Conchar, nice try, Keith, getting us off topic.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
So he's obviously not like the only one. Somebody in chat brought up Jonathan Kuminga, who is a very special
Laird.
Player. I own two of them.
Let's talk about your Kuminga life.
So what's funny is that when I bought the 2 Kumingas, I was like, oh, I'll just like buy 2, sell 1, and have that pay for the other one. And then like the price rate basically didn't move. Then I started wondering like what the value is in terms of just like holding on to somebody like Kuminga, who the L10 is going to go up a little bit, but not like these spikes are really helpful as long as the L10 stays low. And we were talking about this last time with DeMar DeRozan, that like you want guys that spike, but it's actually almost helpful if they kind of like come up short in enough games so that the L10 stays low. Like a guy who drops 55 with an L10 of 55 is not as helpful as a guy with drops 55 with an L10 of 30. And so Kuminga's on like a much lower end of this. What is he at? 6 now? Oh my God.
Yeah.
6, but like drops 23 fantasy points yesterday, had that 30 game when like everybody sat, and obviously there's probably bigger risk. Maybe the risk actually isn't even bigger with Kuminga, but like, he's probably not getting there, as opposed to DeRozan, who like, there'll be a floor, and like if he scores 30, you're probably like not doing that well, but you're not dead. Like a Kuminga -2, you're probably dead. But like, do you sell guys like this? Is it like better to hold a guy like Kuminga, or like what's your thought on that? Because selfishly, I have 2 of these things and like played him this week, but that doesn't, it was dead to me.
So here's my thought: the Kuminga type issue is if you play him to start the game week and we don't know any news, he could absolutely destroy your lineup. And he could be the reason that you don't even get like a bottom tier 5.
Yeah.
Because
trust me.
So last night, Klay Thompson missed.
Yeah.
So that rotation shortened, opened up more minutes. The Warriors can just be super fluid with their guys anyways. Oh, James Wiseman no longer is in the NBA. That's fun.
Yep.
R.I.P. Tuggy. But yeah, so I'm trying right now to be like really, really lean with the gallery in terms of like I'll buy up the guys in the middle of the week as news hits and then decide the night before or like the morning of who I actually like need and are going to play. And then the NBA market's still really, really liquid.
Yeah,
where you can sell. I mean, if you just go to decide to be the floor, or you just sometimes the funniest part of the floor is like way off from like the last few sales. So if you just really undercut the floor and just go, I'm just going to sell for what everybody else is selling for. Like I'm seeing guys go in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. I haven't had trouble selling anyone.
I haven't. Yeah,
particularly on
especially if you have the right guys. What's that? Sorry.
Particularly on like a deadline day.
On a deadline day, if the guy again, if you have, but like I got a reward. God, who the hell is my reward? Kispert from Washington, who's been like okay, but like we joke about like he's just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted him, for like under the floor, no reaction. It was like an hour, and I was like in the line of the next ride. I'm like, okay, let me just lower him a little bit more. No reaction. And the third time, I lowered him just a little bit more to like what his last auction was. And 2 minutes later, gone on deadline day. And I mean, that's just a guy. So I think that the reality is you can kind of stack up these guys, figure out who you want to use, and then as long as you're not going to be like super price sensitive. Oh man, I lost 0.001. I lost $1.20 on this transaction because of the 5%. I can't possibly sell them. Like if you can just like get rid of that thought and go, well, I'm just going to use that money and move on to the next guy. I think it's a very, very easy liquid market to do that in. So like going back to Kuminga, I'll buy Kuminga when I need him. I mean, he's never going to be so expensive that I can't just go acquire him. And then if you miss the rush up, then just go find another one. Like I think one of the interesting value things that I think has happened. Like so, we started with Conchar. Conchar might not be nearly as sexy at the end of today because I don't know if you guys saw, but Luka's supposed to sit, Dinwiddie's supposed to sit. There's going to be like a ton of Josh Green buzz, and then more stuff's going to happen tomorrow, and more stuff's going to happen Friday. So sometimes like the guy that's a sexy value on Wednesday, he's like 13th on Alex's value list by the time this like comes around. Like there's just so much stuff that's going on.
So do you think that the real question is not sell or play, but when sell? And if it's when, is it even worth waiting for the deadline? Like we saw this with Contra, like it's already coming down. Right. And who did was it Duran? Hold on.
Jalen Duran.
Who I bought.
Was a thin buy last night anyways, for what it's worth.
Yeah, thin buy, which is why you'll see my name here purchasing one. So
I mean, I'm on there too, just because I wanted the flexibility. Because we're gonna do. Here's the cool. God, here's like where it gets like really intense, and I would love Alex to tell me if I'm going way too deep on this or if it's like a shallower thought. So like Duran is actually like a fantastic buy right now to have because you get to see one more game before the week locks. Okay, yeah. So they're gonna play one game. So we can see exactly what the usage and the minutes are going to look like because Stewart got injured in the second half or I got injured at halftime. So you really don't have like a large sample of like exactly what that rotation is going to look like. So you get a game tonight, or is it tonight or tomorrow before the game week? So now we can see if he is in fact like a good value play. Like, is he good for his L10 of 18? And if he's not, then you just get rid of him. And if you were early enough, you're probably going to get really close to what you had. Like for your buy, Laird, I don't think you're gonna have a problem getting really close to what you had. So if it's no good, then just get rid of it and don't hold on to, your version of Dwayne Dedman for 3 weeks again.
Dedman won me a card, actually. I love this guy.
I mean, so maybe he's a good better example than like a Conchar or a Kuminga because he's still consistently in the rotation.
Yeah, so
it's funny low enough L10.
Because I remember when Kuminga had that big game when like everybody sat, then there was like this report that like Steve Kerr said he should actually be part of the rotation, and was like,
Yeah.
let's go. And then he played like 2 minutes the next day, and then 0. And I was like, that's not part
Steve
of the
Kerr's a
rotation.
liar sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, every NBA coach. Well, hold on. So here's the funny thing. I was like on, like in between parks on what was it, Monday at 6, and then all of a sudden, if you want a fun one, Laird, type in Kim Birch, Birch.
Yeah.
Here's a really fun one. Alex, do you remember seeing the news and why that happened? Do either of y'all know why that happened?
Who was it? I mean, it was the Raptors. They were a mess that day. Anyway.
Yeah, they just
But
had everybody.
specifically what happened?
I don't know. Van Fleet is the only
Nick
one I remember.
Nick Nurse decided to play some games at the little press conference at like 5:30. So obviously they had ruled everybody out. And we all just thought it was going to be like, they had hinted that Flynn was going to start because he, I think, started the previous game.
Yep.
And then they had like Otto Porter. So I think the lineup is Flynn, Otto Porter, Thad Young, Barnes, and OG. And so it was just like, who's going to fill the Van Fleet spots? Is it going to be Banton or is it going to be Flynn? And then Nick Nurse decides to go. He goes, well, actually, I'm thinking about starting Kim Birch. And all of a sudden, that tweet comes out, and that's what just happened there. And then what ends up happening? Exactly what expected to happen. Banton drops what, 60? Kim Birch plays 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
It was amazing. It was so good. And it was also the other, who's the rookie center that I don't think even has a card yet. What's his name?
Man. I don't know why he doesn't have a card.
Koloko. What's his name?
Koloko?
Yeah, he's half decent. But so he goes, no. I'm going to start Coco or Birch, not Banton. And then all of a sudden at 6:30, Banton gets to start. And then you can go look at the Banton graph. And Banton shoots up.
The Banton graph is absurd too.
I mean, Banton mashed.
He did.
Right? So it worked out. But
so what's funny about this situation, though, is that the run-up in price indicates that this is like the new normal. But like we knew that the Raptors had like a bunch of guys out, and none of them are out like for months, or at least like the important ones are not out for months. And so it's like this buying up here is like at some point you're just like holding this bag, right? Like, like how many minutes does Banton play when everybody is back next week?
I mean, he has a role, but not a role that's going to be good enough. And I mean, look at Laird. Let's talk about the hidden value, the U23 until 2024. That's doing a lot of good.
That's a soccer joke for anyone who is unfamiliar with that.
Well, no, I love that it shows it. It's like this outside optimism that we're going to have U23 NBA.
Don't rule it out. That would be a fun competition.
That would be cool.
I'm going to go back to Duran for a second because the card that I bought was purchased like 45 minutes before I bought it. Like the guy, like,
oh, that's lovely. That's amazing.
Like, and so I was kind of like, my first thought was when I bought it, I was like, oh, this is still going up. Like, this is great.
Right.
But then it was kind of like, why'd they sell so quickly? But then I'm also like, oh, they profited. They had a couple of them. They sold, was it 1670 to 1990? Like, it's not huge. You're not going to make huge margins.
Not after the 5%.
Yeah, the 5% that I was going to say. Does that even cover it?
But I'm just like, I think that's a reasonable strategy of like, instead of trying to figure out where the top is, just sell on the way up. And like, I don't think you can really struggle doing that strategy.
So just real quick on the Banton thing, just so we don't gloss over, Alex, other Alex in chat nailed it at 12, said that Banton did, but Flynn didn't matter. Flynn had the run up, the early run up, because Flynn was supposed to be the starter. So that's why we saw the instant Banton shoot up, because Banton, in a way, it was just really the hysterical thing in our DFS chat. We had expected Flynn the whole day, and I was just like, just so you know, I think if you want to get off chalk, Banton could be a great way to get off chalk. And then, I mean, the starter happened, so it didn't end up mattering because everybody just flipped the two. Sure. Same here in Sorare. But, I mean, the funniest part is Flynn, if Fred VanVleet's out for much longer, like, that's not a bad price on Flynn for what he's going to get you for his L10.
Right,
like,
the new price is
not playing
bad.
like 20.
Especially that one that just happened.
Right. Like, but like, go to the scores, Laird. Go to the score real quick. I mean, he still did well, I thought.
Yeah, almost 3x.
19.6 for an L10 of, I think he was like at 5 or 6.
8.
8.
Okay, so
15 minutes. So like he gets any more minute, like per minute, that's great.
Yeah.
Right. And we've seen him. So, I mean, it's just interesting how quickly people want to sell off. So, I mean, I guess that brings us back to the whole sell or play. Like, I loved your point on Conchar. Like that when I came in about it really depends on how you're going to do them in the lineup. Like for me, I have pretty good limiteds. Like I always like when these opportunities come up, I buy enough that I can fill if I decide that he's going to be like the guy, that I have enough to fill out my lineups, like that I can use him. And then I figure I'm sometimes early enough that even if I miss like the top of selling, I'm still not going to take a loss. So that's kind of how I'm evaluating everything right now is if I got them cheap enough, okay, now I have the choice of if I'm going to play them. If my lineup is starting to shake out and look really, really good, then I can plug them in. And if not, I'll just sell off. And yeah, I'm not going to peak price it. Peak price is the run up for sure.
Yeah.
So can I offer an alternative to that?
I love that. Love that.
So if you get it early enough, for me, like unless I'm profiting, I just figure it's going to come around. I just figure there's going to be another chance for these guys, and I'll just hold. Like if I, and I'm someone who's generally spending all of my available ETH at a time, and I'll have to like sell off to gain some back if I want to add anyone else.
Sure.
So it's not necessarily advantageous for me to do that, but I don't like selling at losses. So I'm just like, all right, this guy will either not perform and his L10 goes down and eventually I can just play him at value, or if there's another situation where this guy gets hurt and I just, if he doesn't factor into my lineups at that time, then I'll just sell the spike there. There's no immediacy for me, at least, to turn these guys around right away, because and even like when I need ETH, sometimes I still like I'm very staunch about not selling at a loss. Like I have to profit or else I just won't sell.
You and Laird are part of that club.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's plenty into that though of with guys like this, like one good game doesn't make their L10 explode. Correct. And so it's entirely possible that, so the L10 doesn't explode, and therefore there's still like reasonable plays. But the situation that made them good this week can happen later. Like it's not like it can't happen. And theoretically, their L10 could be even lower in the future when their situation comes up that they become a good Van Vliet's out again. The L10 is now 6 because Flynn hasn't played in a while. Like I think there's reason not to sell at losses, Keith.
So can I just make Alex, I see you, and then I want to make my note because this is going to go into yours. I think the problem for me why I don't like doing that is we talked about this last week, but just the fact of an established value of the players, and as more and more mints keep coming, like
that's fair.
Like, can you hold Kuminga for 2 months? I don't know. I mean,
we're going to find out, Keith.
Could that be the price of Durant we really don't know. I mean, it's all cool, like yield with the guy. Like as long as you can play him, I think it's fine. But if you're just going to stash a guy at the end of the bench, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
That's fair. If you don't think they're ever going to match that value at any point ever again, like I totally understand. It's just a lot of times I'm like, I don't really stand to gain much by selling at this point anyway, so I just hold. But the other thing, the other alternative approach to all of this is when you see someone spike like that, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, rug pulled, and that price goes back down. Or a better case scenario, wait until Bane comes back and Conchar dives or whatever better applicable player in this situation. Get a guy is the next guy in line for those replacement minutes. And when his role regresses back, especially if he's a backup for like DeAndre Ayton, so Bismack Biyombo, guys like that, just wait till that price settles and buy them then. So that way you have them in your gallery. You're playing them at a price that you already are comfortable with. And, there's not this cost benefit analysis. You're just like, I have him, I will play him. the guys who get those big minutes bursts are in line to get those big minutes bursts again. They're one guy down, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the same guy. Like if maybe the 4, which I guess was Cam Johnson, if someone else for the Suns gets hurt, someone's going to need to supplement some minutes there, and it's just going to be cyclical. And I think there's a major buying opportunity for those guys who are in line to get big minutes boosts down the line.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do like Keith's point from before that it's one thing to think that you've identified what the appropriate price is for a card when there are 350 of them, but if there are 600 of them, that's different. And so,
or if there's 1,100 when he
right, yeah, just as we get more.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, that means the price should go down because the supply is up, but hopefully we have more users.
But I mean, obviously, if people join, I mean, it's just one of those things that I think being really, really strategic about like what your budget is. Like that's I will say the coolest thing about NBA right now, which I don't think we always had in the football side of things, is just like football. They're just flat out cards that are not sellable. That's just like, you just need to go, you know, I mean, I've talked to people that are trying to activate a Bologna bot, like are trying to find the price that the bot will actually buy the card, because nobody in their right mind would buy it otherwise, right? And an NBA, like, because of this speculation, because at any point a guy with a 2L10, as long as he is still alive and on the roster, could become like something.
Sure.
Like, you can find a
There's
bot.
hope.
There's hope. I mean, I got a Civi. Oh, I can't even say his name. He's just Civi to me.
McCulloch or whatever.
Is he even on the Knicks right now? Laird, you're a Knicks fan.
You know what's funny, Keith? I got his common yesterday.
Okay,
no,
well, that's even more worthless than my limited
It is,
that I got
literally.
for a reward. But it was like he's like 0.001, and I'm just like, you know what? Civi, I would actually play for the Pistons from time to time last year, like in DFS, like when stuff would align right.
Like last night,
So I'm like,
or whenever that was. Yeah.
I'm just gonna stash him, but he didn't cost me anything. But like, it was only 0.001, so I think that those prices it's fine. But I mean, when you're talking about, you know, you paid. Sorry, I'm making try to go to USD. I'm so bad with the ETH thing, but like, you know, I paid $12 for Kuminga or something like that. I'm like, there's a lot of guys at $12 that are actually more in the rotation that you could actually, you know, potentially get a spike off. That I would almost just go, I'll come back to Kuminga when I need him. I'm gonna go get, you know, before the I'm gonna go get Thad Young.
You know what's better than buying Kuminga at 12? Buying 2 of them for $24.
By 24.
Yeah.
Well, but were they 24 a piece when you bought it? Possible.
I literally don't even want to look. I'm so embarrassed.
I think it. But yeah, I mean, I just think the play versus sell element is just so, is when you get these guys. So like, I don't know if we already said it, but I struggled. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
32.78 for one and 31.41 for the other. Boy, I'm in.
You were early. So like I struggled, and I think I was sharing this with both of you guys. I was struggling like crazy with Killian Hayes this week, like running up to the game, because I had like 5 of them.
Yeah,
and like the hardest part to me, and where I really the decision was tough, was when I started getting to like contender lineups where you're starting to put some like just scraps in there.
Mm-hmm.
It was like,
whoa.
Go to the rare price, Laird. So like if you hover those bottom ones after the auction, you'll see me in there, I'm sure. No, further to the right, like November 23rd, or I'm somewhere in there before that run up. I'm somewhere near the bottom there, but then it was running up high, and I'm like, my God, like tripled price. Can I actually win? Go down further, and you'll find mine. You'll find like 2 or 3 of them.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
$55.
Yeah,
53.
Yeah. So, and then all of a sudden you're talking, you know, close to like 130, $140, and it's like, all right, there's locking in $80 to $90 of profit, and these cards are about to go in a contender lineup where like Dylan Brooks and my boy Max Strus, who didn't score at halftime, had -1 fantasy point. And it's like, these are the guys I'm putting this elite card of the weekend
Yeah.
too. Does that make sense, or should I just sell out? And yeah, I'm going to keep my champion one where I'm putting him with Luka and KD and those guys. Like that wasn't a decision, but it was like more of, all right, I got this extra one in Contender. Do I really want to run it with like other scrubs?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you find
that's where my decision was? It wasn't necessarily do I want to play champ, like where I have the right guys to go with it, and I'm like, all right, I feel like I have a shot at a podium. It's like it's like the lesser lineups.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I'm going to point out something that we added this week, which I had on the screen before, and I'll just show everybody to get in. But we have the impact players now for NBA. So if you go to the SO5 page and then Game Week Center and select basketball, there's now a link that says impact players. And basically what this does is shows you how many cards of a certain player are played in each competition. Okay. And it's sorted by power. So like for the XP that's on the card, we add it all up and then divide it by the total power. So basically like if Jason Tatum, who's first here in limited champion, like if he has a monster game and you don't have him, you're probably going to be behind unless you have Doncic or whatever. And you can sort it by a bunch of different things. So you can see how many people like played Killian Hayes in limited champion or rare champion.
Go to rare champ.
So
I'm curious how many of the people took that limited.
None.
Only 7. Wow.
7 in rare champion. And then do you think that there's like, but he's the top player in rare contender. Literally number one. I think
that's a mistake.
It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I find that the XP difference between rare and limited is like
not much.
It's not enough for me to be like, oh, I need like 5 rares.
Well, that's why I was curious if people would just go and toss him into rare champion or something like that.
But this is where everyone played him.
Right.
Limited contender.
And I just think that's such a waste.
So
am I wrong here?
It's really funny because I completely agree with you. Like the point of Hayes is to allow you to play more elite players.
Guys. Yeah.
But it's kind of funny because I think what we're seeing here is that people are choosing to play elite players in contender because of Hayes. Like it's you're getting like one more elite player in contender as opposed to another elite player in champion, which seemed backwards to me because the prizes are so much better.
Right. Well, that's the whole progression element is in champion. If I'm playing limited champ, I can win rares. If I'm playing rare champ, I can win supers. So I'm going to use my elite. It's literally like on the football side of things, like putting all your best players. I know this will drive like Sean crazy, but putting all your best players into like all-star rare, where it's a complete and utter crapshoot. And then you like do all the good players there. And then you just kind of throw away, underdog, or you throw away, rare pro where the better rewards are.
So my only counter to all of this in terms of like the limited versus rare thing is that so many more people are playing limited. So like you could have bought Killian Hayes and like just not had 3 rare cards to play in rare champion or rare contender. So like that part I understand of like why it's not so heavy. It does seem, I don't know. I guess I just expected it to be more in terms of contender than champion, like 92 in champion
and 140 something,
100, like literally double,
180. What are your thoughts, Alex? Concerning me and you when we first started, where I was team champ, you were team contender.
Having now moved into the champion space, it is hard to win. The margins are so thin. And I actually see the use in what was Hayes L10? 10?
It was 10. Yeah, it was 10. It was great.
So like, yeah, if that gets you one of those guys like Lillard who can put up a 70, but he had like a 40 L10, like you can so much more easily win a tier 1 here than you can even win like a rare tier 3 in champion. So I don't think it's crazy, but when you kind of take, like a 9% chance of winning limited contender this week. And then even if you say you win a Luca and then putting that into a lineup in champion, and you multiply this week's chance of success by the chance of success once we have the Luca, it's still so minuscule that I think ultimately it still makes more sense to play him in champion this week. See what I'm saying? Is that too much?
Well, no, I do. So here's the next level thinking, and back to the sell or play, right? Is so now you played Killian Hayes. Let's say that you bought late. So now you overpaid for Killian Hayes as a value play to enter a contest with lesser rewards.
Dumb.
And then you really got to figure out, is your lineup good enough to, because now I'm at the point where if I went limited contender with Killian Hayes and I didn't buy at the beginning, I bought towards the peak. Now I have to top 5% my outcomes here.
Yes.
Like I can't go, okay, I got 3 good players and I'm going to toss in Kuminga hoping, sorry, this is Kuminga murder over here. But like
hardly, I'm playing him every week, man.
Kuminga and Laird, I'm sorry, this is just shots at Laird, and Ryan or Cindy Acano. Like I'm putting those 2 in after I overpaid for Hayes, and I'm like, what the hell did I just do? Like that is getting me nowhere.
I'm going to go back to the champion contender thing because I think the rare versus limited split applies to the champion contender also. That if you play Hayes in champion, you basically can play 3 like superstars. Like you can play like Doncic, Giannis, and Lillard or something like that. But not everyone has 3 of those guys. Some people have 1, some people have 2. And if you play Hayes in contender, now you can play both of those guys. Or like a maybe not even that elite, but like you could play a Booker and a Lillard.
Yep.
And if you have those guys, like that lineup is probably dead in champion. And so, or it's not dead, but it's not nearly as competitive because you're playing other Hayes lineups that have Doncic, Giannis, and Morant. And you're like,
you want me to say my Hayes lineups real quick, Laird, just to kind of prove your point? Because I think it's going to like.
Did you play both of them?
I didn't. I did team no sell. So like on limited champion, I ended up playing so limited. Oh, here you go. So that's one rare contender.
That's the contender one, yeah.
And I just ended up, and that was doing pretty well. Okay, I mean it's winning a reward. Max Strus needs to improve, but for champion, I decided to go to the Pistons. But I mean it's with Luka and KD,
right?
And then the Pistons were missing a lot of guys, so I thought Ivy was pretty studly. And then Bogdanovich is kind of what I was talking with you guys earlier about. Okay, who's the next level guy that we just are? I'm automatically going. Cade's out, so Hayes is his immediate replacement. But Bogdanovich has actually been crushing since Cade was out, taking a lot more shots. So that's kind of why I wanted to roll the dice with him. And then, but like go to limited champion. I mean, it's wrecked because Jokic got COVID. But I mean, like you said, I'm getting Jokic and Giannis together, and then OG was a high. I was between OG or Dame Lillard, but because of the Raptors having so many people out, and they actually had some pretty good matchups, I was like, okay, I'm gonna roll OG instead of him.
Right, but like that's it right there. That like even if you played Lillard, like that's a lineup now: Jokic, Giannis,
Lillard. And that's what you have to picture. OG is Lillard there in a lot of ways. I just decided to go the other way.
You cannot play that in contender. And so, like, if you don't have Jokic and Giannis, I completely understand playing Hayes in contender and trying to win Jokic or Giannis.
That makes sense. No, I've come 180. I just thought it was just really interesting to pay more for a value guy and not chase the top rewards. But I think it kind of makes more sense now. But now that everybody's doing it, does it make sense to go back the other way?
I think it's just a budget thing. Like I think ultimately, like we kind of talk about this on the football side that like if you buy like a Tadic, but you don't have like if that's by far your best player and you're like, oh, I'll just play this in all-star rare, like it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you just don't have the budget for more players, then that's just where you go. You compete where you
Right.
you compete where you can compete.
Well, I think what you just said there with Tadic is you go, let me not pay the premium for that type of guy and just find 90% of him for 90% of the price.
Yeah. Agreed there as well. So I think the real, let me wonder if we can. Yeah, 4 Giannis's played in limited contender.
I would love to see those lineups because I bet they're not. I mean, well,
272.
he didn't play well, but like, what about Doncic, where he actually had a good game?
You know what's interesting though?
Oh, champion.
Well, he was so he's the second highest played player.
Right.
Oh my God!
What about Contender, though?
Laird. We need to. Somebody just said that Bam just got ruled out.
Yes, he did.
Let's go.
Deadman time.
Uh-oh. So are you gonna sell? Are you gonna sell on a run up?
There you go.
I could definitely sell for half of what I paid for now with a run up.
No, just watch it throughout the day, man. I don't even see there it is, 18 minutes ago. Wow, that was a while ago.
What happened?
Yeah, I can pay attention to news when I'm feeding a baby. I just can't pay attention when I'm streaming.
Here's if this isn't proof of I'm on team play here.
It's already going.
It is. Look at
look at what's already happening right now.
Yeah,
it's moving, Laird. Maybe not that much. Because it's midweek. Like if this was deadline day, we would full out middle finger right now.
Oh,
yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh, yeah. If it was a deadline day.
If it was deadline day. So that's kind of the trick on all this, though. I kind of talked about it earlier with like Conchar and whatever. Like you can sit a little bit on these guys, and you're gonna have like that little original push that everybody goes, and it comes back down. Then on deadline day, where more people go, I need 19. Oh, Conchar just played 36 minutes. It's not going to be as big of a run up, but you still can get off of him.
Yeah, please don't encourage me to sit on players, please.
I'm saying you buy them in the middle of the week, not on a deadline day.
So
deadline day clears all.
My favorite thing about a Deadman run up is that Deadman is questionable for every single game. Like at any moment, he could just not play. Also,
you know who else is questionable for 82 games a season? Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis, yeah. But that's priced in. Like literally, he's priced in. Like his price is so much lower than everybody else.
Has he boosted up lately since he's been mashing with LeBron out? I haven't even looked because I just can't own an Anthony Davis. It's just not good for mental.
He's so cheap though.
You're so far from the only one though. Like
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, like 0.048 is his limited floor.
That's so funny. Like look above Mitchell and Davis. Look at that massive price difference.
It's wild.
For no difference in like L10.
And
Durant's
Davis
so cheap.
Davis is so consistent when he's on the floor.
My God. Look like what an outlier he is. Holy
It really is.
God.
Dude, he's a great card. It's just like you have to.
Well, and he gives you like
at least
90
one
upside.
game a week. Yeah, right.
He literally can hit 90. He's like one of 10 players on this platform that can hit like. Is it even 10 that can hit 100? I bet you it's less than 10 that can hit 100. Because you have to have like Embiid with the blocks. You have to have the blocks and the steal. And blocks come easier to get 8 blocks in a game than steals.
Yeah.
Unlimited budget. I think he's like the 4th best player on the platform at least.
You know what the worst part about Davis is too? He could totally get traded and actually then all of a sudden like play more.
Yeah, he's definitely wanting to play more when he leaves LA. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be super.
Right. It's just like LeBron right now. Like I was talking. I hope it doesn't like. I was talking with. I'll just say a guy about it that is around other athletes. We'll say that, and I was just like, LeBron is such a drama king sometimes. Like I don't know how injured LeBron is. I think LeBron is partially like injured to put pressure on the Lakers right now. Like I could possibly play through this if we were at the end of the season, but I'm pissed. But I want to force trades and I want to force your hands right now. So, I mean, remember what was the one when he went back to the Cavs, Alex? You probably know this better than me. But in the middle of the season, he decided he needed a break to go to Miami. And then they had to make a trade.
Yeah, it was when they had. I was on the beat
Wade.
then. It was
They had
when
Wade.
they had Wade. Yeah, they destroyed the whole team because they had to make a last ditch effort to try and keep him or try and
Right.
win something in his last year, and they destroyed the entire team. And he
And then LeBron took a break.
He carried them to the finals. But he can't do that anymore.
Remember though, LeBron in the middle of the season takes a break.
Yeah.
And then they come back, and meanwhile they end up like trade and cut a few players to get LeBron to kind of come back, and then they make the finals run.
Dude,
I just know he just likes the posture really.
Well, and he's at like Shaq levels of commercials right now. Like he went from like I'm only going to do Nike commercials and Beats commercials because I own them to like I will do every commercial under the sun after he signed that extension because like I think he punted winning and I think he knows that he's done for in that situation. I think he knows he wrecked the ship.
But here, Laird,
all that to say they need
like
to trade
if Anthony Davis gets traded to the Knicks this season, like all of a sudden, I think a lot of that questionable tag, as long as he's not actually hurt, like he could just destroy there.
I mean, like
I'm talking myself into buying him, by the way. Right?
Like, well, I mean, obviously, like he can crush anywhere. Like that's not a Like obviously he could do really well in New York, and if they could get rid of Randall and Fournier, I'm all for it. But yeah, I think he's like easily one of the most undervalued players on the platform from a production standpoint. It's only because he keeps playing.
I mean, look, Pascal Siakam is out for we don't even know how much longer, and he's more expensive than Davis right now. Like this is a kind of absurd. I didn't realize how stupid this was.
Somebody in chat brought up Paul George, who is another one.
Not as good as you want him to be.
So you convinced me to buy Paul George a while ago because
the one day, and you're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was definitely like thanking you for this because like I'm just not a Paul George guy.
I am not either.
Like he's so bad, his page doesn't even load here.
I think it was like the Rockets, so it was like an obvious pace up too.
Yeah, it was more just like he
was low L10. I think
like as long as Kawhi is out. Yeah, the like a 39 L10 for a guy who like could hit 60. I mean, he had an 81.
And he hit 81.
Yeah.
But that was all steals too, if you remember. Like he had like 5 steals.
To be honest,
that's a big deal is getting those
6 steals, 2 blocks.
Steals. Yeah.
Almost a triple double.
And it was the Rockets. There you go. It was the Rockets, so that helped.
A low scoring.
But that's so much of this too. Is like that made sense too because Kevin Porter Jr. is very, very turnover prone as well. So it's like that was just like the perfect recipe. Darius Garland, though, there's another guy that has insane upside when Donovan Mitchell misses, which we know Donovan Mitchell is a guy that just is going to take some days off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Mitchell just ran his L10 up in the time that Garland was out.
Right.
Because like
that's actually a nice little combo though too.
It is.
I bet you the Cavs are gonna have days that they let Garland rest and then Mitchell goes off and then Mitchell rests and Garland goes off. That's a nice little like combo. And then just split them in like champion and contender or something sometime.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, isn't it like this NBA platform just awesome in the fact that there's just like so many variations of the strategies?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I really love about it is I feel like it really closely emulates what it's like to build an actual NBA team, whereas like other sports, not necessarily the case. Like you have to consider so many variables here, and like having depth is very important. And
you can't sign 5 superstars,
right? Being able to fit. I mean, you don't have to deal with personalities or anything like that. Although, unless a guy forces his way out of a situation and it hurts your team and stuff. But yeah, it's just. I think it's cool. That's actually what I look for when it comes to any sports experience like this and like a fantasy game or like playing, if I'm going to play NBA 2K or whatever, I want it to feel like I'm actually a GM. And it very much feels like that on this platform. Timing, buying and selling. Like how often do you see a guy like, Robinson, the dude from the Heat, just get a bad contract, and it's just like making any bad purchase. I enjoy that thoroughly.
Poor Duncan.
Yeah.
Did you pull up Jimmy Butler to say maybe another misprice?
I did. I think he's just super underrated. I tweeted about this. I compared Jimmy Butler to John Morant, which like isn't fair to Jimmy Butler, but it basically what's actually one of the responses I thought was really funny, not funny, but interesting that people are thinking of this way is they were talking about how much younger John Morant is.
Okay.
And this goes back to like something that we've talked about on the football side too, but like this idea that you're going to buy a John Morant card today and just like hold it for 20 years. Like, yep, I'm never going to get out of this. It'll be an elite card forever. No worries about it. Like the long-term thinking is hilarious for a game that's been around for a month. And like we're in, obviously you start playing this game because like you think Sorare will be wildly successful. And like, I totally get that. And NFTs will be a thing, but it's just the idea of like thinking that far ahead was just kind of funny to me. But yeah, I think this
coming from a Joao Felix owner.
Totally. That's just at this point. That has nothing to do with that. But
it does. Oh, it sort of does because you're projecting. You're still holding on. You're just like he just needs one move away, Laird. He's just one move away.
You're right.
He actually it might be though. That's the funniest part. Is
I know.
Like all jokes aside, he gets like the one good move, and you're like, We're back. We are back.
Yeah, except I don't sell at that point either. Butler's
but now you got to play him. He's got U23 time left. But no, I think you know what the funny about Butler is. It sort of proved it on that score graph, but he's like one of the really difficult guys because he's going to always hover in that 44 to 45 range, and you do get some of the spikes. But using like he had a great game versus Phoenix, and it's like he outperformed his L10 by 5.
Yeah.
And so, like, those are the hard ones. Is like when you do spend up for your high 40s. Sorry, I like switched to mid to gameplay. I think about Sorare NBA way too much time, in a day. But like, if you're gonna spend like the mid 40s to 50s on a player, I think they have to have conceivable 60 upside on the regular. Which Butler has some in there, but I would say it's harder to say it's on the regular. Like, who would you rather have for not bad? Who would you rather have, Laird, for in-house for 45 L10? Anthony Davis or Jimmy Butler?
I mean, definitely Davis. But are they the same price?
Pretty close.
Butler's 43, 58. Close. I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean,
how is James Harden almost like $20 more for limited than Anthony Davis?
Because they stopped auctioning cards
for Harden.
For Harden, yeah. So like they're basically they're not selling.
Let me pay more for a guy with no utility right now. Cool.
Yeah, but there really aren't that many sales. Right. Like that's why.
I get it. That's actually a really interesting thing.
I don't know why anybody would sell now. Like, why would you sell a Harden now?
Because you need to use the budget for somebody that's actually playing.
I guess, yeah.
Going back to the Davis Butler question, I would have to see the price graphs again because at that level, assuming you're playing champion, like you need the peak scores. Like you can't win unless you have the peak scores. And I think Butler's peak score was higher.
Yeah, but I mean,
because look, he's kind of like capped out at 62, whereas Butler had a couple of 70s and an 87, and like. But so I guess if he puts up a 44, I don't care.
I don't see. These are the fun debates, though, too.
I have a lineup right now in Champion with 360s, and I'm in 12th, which is great.
Yeah.
But like, if one of those was an 87, like I think I'm easily in first place because of the margins. Yeah. And like, I don't think you can go wrong for one. And at the price point, I think like you just buy both. But if I had to make a decision, I would just go with the guy who had the uncapped upside, because the difference, there's like 250 spots for like a tier 3 limited, and then there's like 3 spots for a tier 1 rare, and it goes back to I'm playing for that. I'm either playing for that number 1 spot, or I might as well just go play Contender.
Interesting. Can you do this, Laird? Just for the in chat, somebody said, "No, what about DeJounte Murray?" Yeah, he would actually 7 a.m. I'm not trying to be. He would actually be one of my least favorite buys. I could find. I just want to show the why though, on the thinking. So here's the thing: if we know Trae Young's out, completely different story. But okay, DeJounte Murray, because of spikes in San Antonio, and then with spikes because Trae Young is out, is that 50 L10? No, that's his yearly. What's his L10? It's 47.
Yeah.
All right, look at his 3 of his last 4 games.
That's with Trae.
Yeah.
That's with Trae, who's going to play a lot. Trey's not a guy that sits out a ton. But you got 30. It froze on me, but it's 35, 50. So I performed my L10, 37, and what's the one below? I think
28.
30. Oh, so there's a 28 and a 38. He just killed you.
Yeah.
You just paid an elite price for a card. He's still not cheap. He's more than Anthony Davis. His L10 is higher than Anthony Davis. And he's wrecked you.
He's cheaper than Davis.
Okay, by how much? $1?
57. Oh, actually, I guess it's a Davis floor that's a little higher.
58.
No, they're basically the same.
Price.
Right.
Same price. But he just killed you. If you get a 28 from a 48 L10, you lost.
Yeah, I mean, Davis had a 33 3 games ago.
Yeah, he probably broke his fingernail halfway
in 35 minutes. No, he played.
He
played.
So I mean, the reality, but 3 of the last 4 weren't that bad. I don't know. I'm just in my head. It's like anytime I have a guy that is competing with usage hardcore and especially at the guard spot where they're not going to block shots and stuff like that, I think is tough.
I do like this point that they brought up 7 a.m. daddy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Tough game.
And this isn't ever something that you can plan on, but the 28 and the 38 were part of 2 game weeks, and so they actually Murray actually scored 58 and 50 that game week.
Which that helps.
That helps, yeah. But just obviously you could have gotten the 39 and 28 in the same game week. It's just.
I think it's just tough.
It's not like he knew that the game week was over, and he's like, I can take this one off because I already dropped the 58.
Yeah, it's just tough. I think this is what going back to Alex harps on a ton and why he does all of his data work is it really just if these guys are going to hover in the high 40s L10, you just can't miss because it's an opportunity costing too because you're like, okay, I budget aside, I'm giving up that spot for all those guys at the top of your list, right? I'm spending 47 on DeJounte Murray, which means I'm not playing Embiid, which means I'm not playing Jokic, who's a bad example because he's been bad this year. I'm not playing Giannis. I'm not playing, you're giving up potentially one of those guys in that spot.
Yeah.
Against your competition, which in a champion format, because we just, I think, went over that you really can't play a Murray and a contender. You're giving up that spot. So it's an opportunity cost then. I think that's the problem with it, or the hard part.
Well, it's not even just opportunity cost; it's literal cost. Those guys are cheaper, but they're not nearly as consistent.
Right.
So you're paying less, but obviously the risk is higher.
The build I'm seeing working too is so I brought up that champion lineup I'm running out there. 1 and 2, I have Tatum and Doncic, which is
great.
Something like 110, but Doncic is a free space. You can get a Doncic, a 60 whatever as your free guy. You can play a 50 level and a 40 level, and they're those guys you look at the 40 level. Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, John Morant 42 next week, Trae Young 43, Fred VanVleet 43, Darius Garland 39. These are all guys who can go for 60, and you can just kind of stuff all of those guys into a lineup. So it's where
and then use your Killian Hayes.
L10s, yeah, right. Where in that L10 can you find that value? And I find the high 30s, low 40s guys fit in perfectly to a champion build. Where if you can find 1 or 2 Killian Hayes, then all of a sudden you're I went to sleep last night with a Tatum 62 and a Ja 60, and Luka had 30 at half, and I'm like, no matter what, I'm going to be all right. And then my ancillary guys got 20, and
but now they have maybe another shot.
Right.
Your point. It puts a lot less pressure on those ancillary guys to blow up versus if you just have a whole team of those
Sure.
second and third fiddles. Like that's just a lot of pressure on them to go.
Yeah, you basically just need the jaw level to pop off, the first two guys to do what they do, and then the bottom guys to
not be
use their points per minute that you expect. Is kind of that's the champion build that I am enjoying quite a lot right now.
I will say this, and this is terrible for any budget users, so I am super sorry. But if you're playing champion, like you have to have Luka. Like I just that guy is literally off to higher usage than Russ Westbrook and Russ Westbrook's cheating season.
So,
like where like they purposely were feeding him stats and Luka's just having to do it.
I think kind of the more important thing though is less about the points and the fact that so many people have him.
Right. That's and the fact that he's
the second most used card in limited champion.
Because he should, I mean, he gives you the highest floor, and until Embiid dropped 100, Luka, I think Luka the same week we were all freaking out about Luka the night before dropping like 80 something, and Embiid's like, hold my beer, Luka.
Yeah.
Like, here's 100. But
and you could have played both.
And you played both easy.
Yeah, especially when he was on that 39. That's the thing, is there's so many guys in that area who can just go off.
I mean, what was Trippin's lineup?
But...
What was Trippin's lineup that he got like third with? It was like he had Luka, MVP, it was Embiid, and I think it was Tatum. It might have been like Tatum. It was something sick. But that's just because
it was Ivy, Aaron Nesmith, and Domantas Sabonis had a 64.
Okay, Sabonis being his, Tatum type. So still really good. But like, I mean, that's a really good build. But again, because he had Luka going for the 80 with Embiid, that was all he needed to shoot way the hell up,
Yeah, I mean, if you can get like 113 from two guys, I would recommend that.
You mean play the guys to get the most points?
I think that's a strong strategy right there.
I like that. I'm going to keep that in mind.
I can't believe we went this whole time without covering that.
Play the best plays?
Yeah.
That's why this is not called the strategy show, because
Embiid and Doncic would have won Contender by themselves.
Hold on. I don't think
that's
is that a new strategy? Just take zeros and just
take zeros.
Yeah.
Finally, Ryan Arcidiacono is going to have some value here. What I'm talking about.
Amazing pronunciation there.
I mean, I've watched every single one of his games, so I'm bound to get it. All right. I think that is going to do it for us this week. Thank you to everybody who has joined us in the chat. It's always really nice to have that going during the show. So thank you very much for everybody who has participated. If you guys could please hit the like button on the video, that's really helpful. If you could also just share it with anybody who's looking for new Sorare NBA content. We'd love you to do that. So thank you so much for that. We'll be back next week for some more. Maybe we'll become a strategy show. Who knows? We might just turn into a shenanigans show. But yeah, thank you guys, and good luck this week.
Bye, guys.